Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Stansted Airport College VIP event. I'm Sam and I work for marketing and I'll be overseeing this open event today. Also in the background is my colleague Jack, who will be helping me with that. Delivering your event today will be our Head and Deputy Head of College, Wendy Martin and Victoria Claydon-Smith, alongside our employer partners. We also have our Placement Progression Officer Mel Debenham with us, who works closely with the employers and supports opportunities for students to get into employment. How this webinar will work is our presenters will share their information with you. They can't see you, but you should be able to see them alongside any information they wish to share on screen. Our presenters and other attendees can't hear you. However, you will be able to ask questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A feature. If you're using a computer, this will be at the bottom of your screen. If you're using a mobile device, tap the screen and this will appear at the top. Ask your questions as we go along, and we will save some time at the end of the employer presentations to answer as many as we can live. Please be aware that your name will appear next to your question, but you can click Ask Anonymously. We are recording this webinar and you will receive an email with a link to the recording. This will also be available on the Stansted Airport College website if you wish to view this webinar again. I'm now going to hand you over to Wendy and Victoria. Don't forget to send in your questions using the Q&A feature.
Hello everyone. It's great to see so many of you here today joining us in this panel discussion about the role you can play in the recovery of the aviation industry. We are delighted to be able to introduce you to some of our partners from around the airport. And we have with us this afternoon, David Cran and Stuart Leighio from Stansted Airport, Paul Kemkaran-Thompson from Skysmart, Heidi Prentice from Harrods Aviation and Eddie O'Dwyer from GT Engines.
Hi everyone, I'm Victoria. Thank you for joining us. Can I please remind everybody to ask questions as we go along using the Q&A function. We will hopefully be able to ask your questions to the panel throughout the session. So let's go over to our panel. First up, it's David. If you could let us know a little more about you and the role that you play at the airport.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for letting me have a bit of time to tell you how I got into aviation and a bit about the role I do here at Stansted. So I guess like a lot of young small boys, I was keen to be a fighter pilot, and growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I was in the Air Cadets and I was going for Officer Aircrew Selection Centre with the RAF. And unfortunately, that's where I found I couldn't join the RAF because of basically my eyesight wasn't good enough. So a bit crestfallen, I thought, okay, but I still want to get into aviation. So back in those days, I opened the Yellow Pages, but equivalent of Google these days, and just wrote away to anything connected with aviation, explaining my situation. So I wrote to airlines, airports, flying clubs, just seeing if there was a job out there. And I was lucky enough to get a job at Exeter Airport as a briefing clerk. So that was basically getting together weather data and taking landing fees for pilots. But the most important thing, it was a foot in the door and my ability to start my aviation career. So effectively 32 years later and 6 airports later, I'm now here at Stansted working as the head of airside operations for MAG Airports. So just shared this image with you. It's the only one I'm going to show, but just to give you an idea. So what you're looking at here is an aerial shot of Stansted. You can see the big terminal building there designed by Sir Norman Foster. But basically the bits that I kind of have to run is everything else, what we call airside. So all the aprons where the aircraft park, all the taxiways, all the grass areas. And the reason we exist as airside operations is to basically ensure that any aircraft movements, any operations inside that is kept safe and compliant. We have something called an aerodrome license that's issued to us by the Civil Aviation Authority. And my team of 50 people working 24/7, 365 days a year are there to ensure that all the operations are safe and compliant. We work very closely with a number of different stakeholders and businesses around the airport. Obviously, most importantly, we work with airlines. Each summer we find out how many aircraft want to operate, and we have to then work out the parking plan. And it's an intricate jigsaw of how all the aircraft of different sizes can park, get all the runway slots and the flight times that they want to. We also work with the general aviation and the cargo operators the same way. We work with the ground handling agents. They also conduct all the turnarounds. They do the baggage. They're the ones that check you in, and we work very closely with them to ensure they're all safe and compliant, as well as air traffic control and the actual pilots themselves. There's a lot of environmental considerations, how aircraft operate out of the airfield, and we need to ensure that they're all keeping those safe and compliant. Likewise, we have environmental teams on site. We need to ensure that all our water discharge consents, the fuel spills, etc., are all kept safe and tidied up as required. And so we work closely with environmental teams. As you can see, there's a lot of area of concrete and tarmac there. So we have civil engineer teams that keep everything all checked and carry out repairs as needed. And we also got electricians and engineers that keep all our aeronautical ground lighting, all the runway lights, taxiway lights, etc., fully serviceable. We work with police and fire in the event of an incident or accident. Our teams work very closely with those. And as you can see, there's a lot of grass on the airfield. And so we have landscapers that keep those cut to a certain specification in order to deter wildlife and birds, because they don't tend to mix with aircraft. Obviously, we have to keep in adverse weather, in snow conditions. It's my team that keep all those areas clear of snow and ice. And we also work very closely with the terminal team, ensuring that the passenger flow in and out of our areas are consistent. Because obviously anything I do out on the airfield, if I close the runway, that's going to have a big impact on the terminal teams and passengers arriving. And then finally, we work with our European colleagues, because aviation is an international activity. So we work very closely with our European partners. And that's about me.
Brilliant. Thank you, David. Thank you for that presentation. We're now going to move on to Leighio Dwyer from GT Engines. Keep dropping your questions into the Q&A box as we're going through.
Hello, everyone. And thanks to Stansted Airport for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all and give you some more information about GT Engine Services. So my name is Leighio Dwyer. I'm the Technical Director at GT Engine Services. We're an aircraft engine maintenance, repair and storage business based here at the airport. Before I talk about GT Engine Services, I'll just give you a little background on my career, which, as I'm sure you can tell by now, didn't start locally. I started out in the industry back in 1992, so I've been in the industry for 29 years. I started at a company in Shannon called Shannon Aerospace, which is now Lufthansa Technik Shannon, where I specialized in systems and engines. So that provided me with a great grounding in the industry. And after my apprenticeship, I continued to work there as a full-time aircraft maintenance technician. So having spent 9 years of that business, I spread my wings a little, and I actually moved to England at that time. And for the next 10 years, I spent the 10 years working as a contract aircraft engineer for various different maintenance organizations and operators. I started out in the tools, and then over time I had increased levels of responsibility, and I did a lot of international travel and visiting all corners of the globe. So I knew then that I wanted to get back into full-time employment. So then I spent 10 years working at Heathrow for GE Aviation. I worked there as a technical program leader, and that was a great job, you know, working for an engine manufacturer, but as part of an aftermarket division. It really gave me a great insight into the GE engines that they manufactured, and, you know, from a technical perspective, how that affected the operators. So again, it was a lot of travel. It was a customer facing position. And, you know, it really gave me a great background, you know, in everything to do with engine maintenance. So finally then 14 months ago, I probably made the best move of my career to date, where I joined GT Engine Services and into this position here as technical director. So I have general oversight of all aspects of the business, covering everything from the activities in the workshop and in our stores to planning, quality, business development, and customer support. So moving on to the information about the company and what we do here. So first of all, I'd like to show you a short video about us. So if we can play that video, please. So I hope everyone enjoyed that video. So as mentioned previously, GT Engine Services are an aircraft engine maintenance, repair and storage business based here at Stansted. We started out as a company back in 2010, where the company was formed to really support operators, engine lessors, airlines in the industry. So we would carry out work for operators such as Jet2, EasyJet, TUI, Titan Airways, BA City Flyer, West Atlantic. We also take care of engines for engine lessors such as Shannon Engine Support, Aerocapta Solutions, Aircastle, Carlisle, Aviation Capital Group, and then we also work with engine manufacturers like GE Aviation, CFM, and Pratt & Whitney. So there are a lot of our customers. We do have many more, but too many to mention, I suppose, at this time. So our facility, we have a 60,000 square feet facility here, which is both working space and storage space. We can work up to as many as 25 engines in our workshop at any one time. And then we also have storage space for up to 150 engines on site. We carried out all kinds of work here, everything from C checks, oil and fuel preservations, bore scope inspections, top and bottom case repairs. And we also carry out module swaps. So if a fan case needed to be replaced, we can do that here on site. Some of the engine types that we work on are the CFM 56, which is the most popular engine worldwide. You'll see them all the time on all the low-cost carriers flying around Europe. LEAP engines, CF6, Trent 700, RB211. We do have a long list of capabilities here. We also have a great team, a lot of experience. So it varies from people who've been in the aviation industry a long time, people who've been with the business since it started out back in 2010. And we also have ex-apprentices who are now flying high and are approved technicians and some of our certifying staff. We also currently have 5 Stansted Airport College students here as apprentices. And we are looking to employ some more as we move forward. We do work closely with the college on this. So I hope that's given you a good insight into GT Engine Services, and hopefully you can ask some questions in the Q&A. And if there's any directed at me, I hope I can answer them. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you for that presentation, Eddie. We're now going to move on to Heidi from Harrods Aviation.
Hey everybody, really thank you for taking time to allow me to tell you about the private and corporate side of the industry. My name is Heidi Prentice. I work for Harrods Aviation, which is part of the Harrods holding group. Some of you may be familiar with the Harrods store in London, but my daughter certainly is, who's your age, as she likes to drag me around the design departments with my staff discount card. Really a bit about me, how I started in aviation. I never intended to go into aviation. I did A-levels, then went to college like yourselves. I did a 3-year course in London doing hairdressing and beauty therapy, although I've only used these skills recently when I've suddenly become in demand in cutting the family's hair during lockdown. When I finished my course, I thought I'd do something different for the summer, and living locally to Stansted, I thought I'd apply for a temporary seasonal job at the airport. 37 years later, I'm still here. What do? We look after corporate and VIP aircraft. Our passengers can be anything from lottery winners on a helicopter to football teams, movie stars, world leaders and royalty. When I started my career in commercial aviation, which is much more structured than the business sector. In this side of the industry, there are no schedules, and rather than having minimal staff dealing with lots of passengers, we have lots of staff dealing with very few passengers. And when I moved to the private sector in 1990, I had no idea of the diverse situations I'd come across. I've known an aircraft to sit here all day, waiting for the passengers who may decide to go shopping en route to the airport or visit a club, then decide they need to sleep before they fly. We have jumbo jets arrive with no passengers and just the owner's pet dog on board. We meet some iconic characters. My role itself, my job title is Customer Service Manager, and I've been with the company for 31 years. It's probably easy to say what I don't do rather than what I do. 1 minute I could be elbow deep in washing up for an aircraft, and in fact I have actually washed up with the red arrows helping me. Call that formation dishwashing. The next minute we could be dealing with head of states. I've even washed the outside of aircraft with a broom and a bucket of water. We basically do what we have to and need to. We have worked on many unusual flights, such as the flight to perform the highest concert ever. So we worked on Soccer Aid, and at our sister base in Luton, they had a series of flights where the passengers went speed dating in the air. I think in a nutshell, my job is to make it happen. The team, my team, the roles are not as defined as they are in the commercial world, where there are check-in agents, gate agents, and people that call all the service to the aircraft to ensure they're turned around with minimal time on the ground. Our staff do all these roles and many more. It's important to remember that for our customers, cost is not often a factor in who they use. It's the level of customer service that means we retain them. We not only have to meet customer expectations, we have to exceed them, and nothing really surprises me. That said, no day's the same. Our customers, some of our aircraft are fitted with staterooms, bedrooms, and luxurious bathrooms. We've even seen a helicopter that had a marble shower in it. Some have huge expensive carpets and LED lights that make the ceiling look like stars. We even have a 747 fitted out to carry racehorses all around the world. They probably travel better than your average budget airline passengers. Our people, it's really important to us, our people. We recruit very carefully, as it's vital that the candidate fits into the team and into the role. It's not for everyone, as you can go from plan A to Z in a very quick succession. And thinking out of the box to find a solution is a key skill. One I'm told I've had, particularly when I managed to find a large amount of very expensive champagne at short notice for a hotel heiress. Discretion is a big part of the role. A lot of our passengers travel the way they do, so they aren't bothered by people wanting selfies or autographs. That said, a very important religious figure, the Dalai Lama, wanted selfies with us all. I'm not sure why, but it made him happy. Looking to the future, particularly for yourselves, having done lots of interviews, and my one word advice to you is to research the company you apply to. We've had candidates who knew nothing about the company or what we do. And when asked why they wanted the role, they said because it was posh. And you meet famous people. Yes, we do, but that's a tiny part of the role. It's long hours, hard work, and a pressured environment out in all weathers. The industry has experienced one of its tougher times, however it will recover, and we have seen it recover in the past. I would say keep your options open when looking at career prospects. When I do career fairs, the majority of the students want to roll in flying. However, there's so many more roles that make up an airport. When we have work experience students, we ask our airport partners to help. so they can really see what's out there and the opportunities they have. They go to air traffic control, and Dave's team take them on the runway for runway inspections. We also get them to visit the catering units, which are unreal. We had an aircraft recently that had a catering bill of over £10,000 for one passenger. Our passengers think nothing of asking the caterers to go to London for a specific brand of macarons they like, or Chinese food from top London restaurants. I won't mention when a staff member dropped a very expensive Chinese banquet all over the floor, and we had to replace it with one from the local Chinese. You are entering into a very fascinating world, and I have to say it's never boring. There's so many opportunities for you, and hopefully the pictures I'll show you now will give you just a touch of what we do.
Unfortunately, we haven't got time to share those images, Heidi, but thank you so much for that presentation. That was really interesting,
Okay.
and a lot of food for thought, I think. We're now going to move over to Paul from Skysmart.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for having us, and thank you to the college for hosting this. So my name is Paul Kemkaran-Thompson. I work at a company called Skysmart MRO. We're a MRO component repair workshop based only 10 minutes from Stansted in Great Dunmow. MRO stands for maintenance, refurbishment and overhaul. So I've been here about 3 years now. I primarily deal with the final compliance auditing of the different units that have gone through all the different workshops here. So we have a very broad spectrum of capability. We have over 500 different units that we can deal with. And when those kind of have gone through all the repair or overhaul or maintenance process, they arrive at my desk, and then I will kind of audit all the steps that everything that's happened, and then deal with all the certificates that comply with all the aviation authorities that we deal with. We primarily specialise in Airbus A320 and Boeing 737 components. We're in quite a unique position because we are a centre of excellence for Airbus avionics. So in the cockpit, all the computer systems that basically, keep the plane in the air, we have an ATEC test rig, which means if there's any faults in any of those, we can connect to them, and then we can run simulations and we can fault diagnose everything that happens in there. So not only do we get stuff from the UK from that, because we're quite unique, we also get stuff sent from all over the world for very kind of rapid turnaround in a lot of situations. Aside from the ATEC system, we also deal with hydraulics. So we do flight control actuators, thrust reverse actuators, the engine fire extinguisher systems, pilot seats, cockpit communication staff, strobe lights, cabin handsets, coffee makers, ovens, because you've got to keep all the passengers happy and fed and watered. We also deal with a lot of vintage stuff as well. So, some days I might have the coffee makers or the thrust reversers or a flight control unit. Other days I might have the gauges from a Spitfire or a Lancaster coming through. So it's an incredible sort of spectrum of stuff. Our customers we deal direct with the airlines, say like Jet2, Aer Lingus, British Airways. But we also deal with the component suppliers as well. There's a big supply chain industry. So those clients of ours will have warehouses full of components, and then they will then deal with different airlines across the globe. So something repaired in Great Dunmow can then end up in a plane in the US or the Far East, all over the place. We're a fairly small firm. We've got about 25 people, 5 of whom are currently apprentices. We have a very broad demographic of ages as well. So we have people kind of, teens and 20s all the way through to their 70s. So it's got quite a sort of family feel to it, and everyone's very happy to support everyone else, to get the jobs done and draw on the different experience that we have in the building. We're looking to take on a couple more apprentices this year, because we're always looking at the next stage of growth, and we're starting to see the industry obviously kind of wake up again and everyone get flying. So I think it's going to get very, very busy. We have a short video we can show you that gives a little bit of insight to how the ATEC stuff kind of looks. And actually one of our apprentices is featured as one of the cast members in this. Great, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free to put them along. OEM, by the way, is original equipment manufacturer, in case that was one of the questions popping up. Okay, thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. We're now going to move on to our last presenter of the evening, Stuart from Manchester Airport Group.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name, as I've been introduced, is Stuart Leighio. I'm the engineering manager here at Stansted Airport. I deal with asset assurance, compliance, and authorising engineer for the whole of the airport. I've only been with the airport 3 years, and aviation is not something that I'm familiar with. I started getting working at college and getting an apprenticeship with Essex and Suffolk Water Company and trained as an electrician, and spent, believe it or not, 9 years at day release college. I was offered a place at university, but as you can imagine, 9 years of day release, and I'd had enough and came out. I left the water company, went to a controls company, was a controls engineer, controls manager, left there, and ended up becoming a project manager, and then predominantly spent 16 years in the NHS. So what am I doing in aviation? What is my role in aviation? So when you look at the airport and the pictures that you saw there earlier on, the airport itself is really like a mini city. It really is. We supply electricity to many of the people around the airport. We also supply them with their own fresh water. So we're I suppose, deemed as a water distributor across the whole of the airport. And obviously all of the buildings that we've got around here. So as engineering wise, it's very, very complex indeed. With the current situation with COVID and not many flights going out, that itself has presented us with very unusual problems in having to deal with mothballing buildings. When you shut a building down, you sort of think to yourself, well, that's it, forget about it. No, you can't. My role is part of legislation, and in that I have to make sure that we are compliant, and that is legislation set down by the government. If I could give you guys any advice entering into your college careers, treat it like work, treat it like how you would be going to work. So present yourself well, turn up on time, and be very diligent. College is not like school. It's very, very much like work. I can recall that many years ago. So yeah, that's me. I'll hand you guys back. Okay, cheers.
Fantastic, thank you, Stuart. We're now going to hand you over to Wendy, Victoria and Mel for some Q&A with our employers.
Thank you, everyone, for giving us such an insight into your roles around the airport. You've really, some of the questions that are coming through, you've really inspired them and given our audience an opportunity to really probe a bit deeper. One of the things that makes the college so unique is the fantastic partnerships that we have. We work with over 40 employers and are happy to be able to introduce you to just some of those today. These partners have donated equipment, taken on apprentices, offer work experience opportunities, tours, guest talks, and have some input into our curriculum design. So really are very, very grateful that they're able to come here today and kind of give you an insight of the type of experience that you will have when you come to the college. It's now time to pose some questions to our panel, just to find out a little bit more about their day-to-day jobs. We've taken in mind some of those questions that you've put through already. So let's go over to Mel for our first questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My first question is for David at Manchester Airport Group. Hi, David. Getting back in the air is not just imperative for airlines, it's also vital for the health of the economy. How confident do you feel that air travel will return to its previous levels or even higher?
There's no denying that this has been a very strange 18 months, but it's not without precedent. We have had numerous, even going back to the 70s, where there was the oil crisis, and that really affected aviation. 2001, 9/11, and the terror attacks, that's affected it. And even as close as 2007 with the bankers crisis, all those had a detrimental effect on aviation and the people's money in their pocket to be able to travel. This situation is slightly different, and I think it's a case of not if, but when. So we've seen a few false starts, but the thing is everyone wants to fly. People have not. There's a huge pent-up demand for people wanting to travel. It makes a big impact on our economy. But even somewhere like Stansted that serves Europe with a lot of low-cost operators, those European countries, Spain will be, you see it in the news, that they so want to be able to reopen. Their economy relies on tourism even more. So I think we will come out of this wiser. We will have systems in place to deal with similar events in the future, and we will react a lot quicker, and it will be less damaging to the industry if it happens again. But I do think, yeah, we certainly will recover. And even now, Ryanair are looking to bring another 14 aircraft over from Seattle and start operating at $125 million a piece. You know, their view is that, you know, that they will start flying it as soon as they can.
Great, fantastic, thank you. And another question for you, David. What changes or improvements have been made at the airport during the pandemic? And have you taken advantage of the quiet period to make improvements?
Yes, well, this is a difficult balance because obviously our revenue is all coming from passengers, and we are at about 98% down on passengers coming through the terminal. However, there's been other increase in operations. So the amount of cargo freight we handle is actually up 57%. So we've not been actually stopped totally, but the hard part is having the amount of money to be able to spend on projects. So admittedly, there's some things that we would have liked to have brought forward. So we're looking to resurface the entire runway length, which is 3 kilometers long. That's due next January. We'd love to bring that forward, but the ability to suddenly take a big project like that and find all the batching plants and the aggregate and the quarries, as well as the safety case and legislation to do that so quickly, that was very difficult. But we did take the opportunity to do some works on the airfield that were very difficult to get at when we're busier. So certain parts, we did a lot of big engineering works with our electrical cables on a section of taxiway that's used really frequently. And so we took advantage of that. And we've been doing some minor works on the runway as well, prior to this resurfacing works, as well as taking a bit of time just to look at all our procedures and processes, not only to see how do we restart, how do we stay compliant and current, but when we restarting a lot more efficiently.
Great, fantastic, it's really interesting. Thank you, David. So let's go over to Wendy, who has some questions for Eddie.
Hi, Eddie. So first question for you. Previously, some of our students actually came over to GT Engines for a tour of the facility and to get a behind the scenes sort of insight into some of the work that you were doing. At the time, part of the visit, there was actually an engine that was in quarantine. So could you explain to us why an engine might be kept in quarantine and sort of what happened there, what your role is in that?
Yes, so there would have been an engine in quarantine, and that engine remains in quarantine here today. It's owned by an operator. So the way it is held here, it's all fenced off. It is there's quarantine signs on the engine and there's quarantine signs on the fencing around it. The reason it's in quarantine is because when the engine was in overhaul at another facility, a mainline bearing was installed in that engine that, you know, following being built up and engine redelivered to the customer, it was found that there was the internal components of the bearing were manufactured to a specification that was substandard. So the engine then went into an investigation procedure, it couldn't be used, without being, so there's a big investigation into that company who produced the bearing, and ultimately the operator has got a lot of other spare engines they could use, and certainly in the current climate, as the aircraft are not flying as much as they were previously, they were able to do without this engine. So it remains in quarantine. My role, I suppose, is that I would just manage it, really. I just ensure that nobody breaks the quarantine process here. We have auditors, either from the Civil Aviation Authority or from other operators or this operator, who would and could be on site. And when they see that, they would ask the same question: why is it in quarantine, and what are we doing to ensure that nobody goes in to take any parts off the engine to use somewhere else? So I just really, ensure that internally that we're managing that in the right way, and the investigation that's going on isn't compromised for that reason.
Lovely, thank you. And yeah, I was actually on that trip as well myself, and it was really fascinating, really, to understand the sort of how deeply the industry is regulated, and also the level of compliance with the work that you're doing. So lovely. And last question from me. So you did touch on it in your presentation. Could you just talk to us a little bit about your plans? You currently have 5 of our sort of apprentices, or we have 5 of your apprentices at the college. What are your plans for recruiting apprentices for this year, and then sort of going forward over the next few years or so?
Yeah, so yes, we have 5 apprentices who are all doing very well, and it's good to have them, and the relationship between ourselves and the college, I think, is working so well. It makes a lot of sense for us to continue with the introduction of apprentices into our system here. So the plan is that we're going to take on 2 new apprentices in September, which of course the college are helping us to identify some good candidates that we can bring in for a look around our facility, explain a bit more about what we do, and ultimately we have some have kind of a chat with them, and an interview, I suppose. And then moving forward over the coming years, we do have big plans to continue to grow this business, to take on more staff. So there'll be a combination of apprentices and experienced staff from outside the business. But the apprentices will always come in. We need to get new blood into the industry, and we very much see ourselves embracing that, and ensuring that we're part of this big recovery, and yeah, it's we definitely see apprentices being a big part of our future.
Excellent, thank you. It's great to hear some of those sort of exciting plans. I'm sure it's great for some of our current students and some of our offer holders as well, to see what sort of opportunities will be available for them. So thank you, Eddie. So I'm now going to hand you over to Victoria. I think she's got a few questions for Heidi over at Harrods.
I have, Heidi. You've stirred up quite a storm on the question and answer panel. People want to hear more about your job. So my first question is going to be, hopefully we'll answer some of those questions. What are the differences between travelling privately as a VIP and commercial passengers? Give us everything.
It's a completely different way to travel. Unlike on a schedule where the planes take off when they want to, our planes or our passengers take off when they want to. For the majority of our flights, passengers arrive, step into often a Bentley, a Rolls Royce. We have one particular customer who has a pink Rolls Royce with a pale pink interior, or a Ferrari, and he leaves without ever touching the terminal. And the same departure. Passport clearance is carried out on the aircraft. So it's a completely different, certainly less stressful than the way I travel.
Lovely. Okay. My next question it brings in more about the pandemic and the recovery. Obviously, the pandemic has massively impacted aviation. How do you see the private sector recovering, and what role do you think our trainees can play in that recovery?
Like everyone in the industry, our business has been impacted massively by the pandemic, and we have had a sharp fall in business. Our customers are predominantly from the Middle East, quarantine. When they come here to shop, and they come here to shop big style. Also, the US market has fallen. However, we are seeing a rise in the charter market. As the scheduled airline flights are not flying, people choose to charter their own aircraft, and that way they don't travel with large groups of other people. Aviation has always had its peaks and troughs, and there have been and will be casualties from this current climate. But as the business recovers, and I believe it will, there'll be a rise in demand, and new companies will start opening up the job market. There's always room for change, and often new concept is the way to go. So look at the low cost market. Whoever knew that successful that was going to be, certainly not in my infancy in aviation. And I do believe the students would come out of college with new ideas, innovations, and hopefully with the same enthusiasm I've got for the industry.
Thank you, Heidi. It's been great to hear your experiences in the luxury side of air travel. And it's good to see that there's prospects that are exciting careers ahead for our new students and our current students. I'm going to hand over to Mel now, because I think you might have a few questions for Paul at Skysmart.
I do, thank you. Hello, Paul.
Hi there.
Hello. We're wondering if you would be able to explain to us the difference between the role of an engineer at Skysmart compared to the role of an engineer based in an aircraft hangar.
Yes, no problem. Both engineers will be trained to very similar standards. But the guys in the hangar, guys or girls, so if a plane has been identified with a fault, they will be the ones to actually remove that particular component. And that could be at any time of night. You know, if there's a plane, that can't take off because there's a component that's gone wrong and it's 3 a.m, then that's when they need to do the job. And then that component that they have removed will then be sent to someone like us to then do the diagnostics and the repair. And then we'd turn that around, send that back, and then those hangar engineers will then obviously reinstall it back into the plane. And actually so we're kind of, it's a flip side of the same level of engineering, but just in a different location. It's rare that we have to do the 3 o'clock in the morning bit, but sometimes it does happen.
Great, interesting, thank you. And you've always supported the learners here at Stansted Airport College, as have all of the participants on the webinar today. What is it that makes you support the college?
Well, it's absolutely essential for the industry, really. You can't really have growth in an industry unless you have new people coming into it. I think it's quite fortunate with the aviation industry that you have people who are in their teens, and you can go right through to 70s plus. So it's not where there's a specific cutoff point, but you do need a flow of people coming through. So actually partnering with the college is absolutely essential, because we need to get those kind of new people coming in as there is growth and as there is change and new planes, new capability. We need those people who have that kind of passion, enthusiasm for the role to come in, learn and grow themselves with us. It's all about corporate company development and industry development and personal development for the people as well. So I think it's, we all have to work hand in hand with each other, and it works brilliantly. It's really fantastic.
Great, that's really great to hear. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Okay, let's go back to Wendy, who has now got some questions for Stuart.
Lovely, thank you very much. And just before I do go over to Stuart, just a reminder, if you haven't already asked your questions, do please put them in the Q&A function. We will do our best to answer as many of those questions as possible. If we can't answer them all during this panel event, we will make sure that they are answered for you, and we will get those answers sent round to you after the event. So please don't worry if we don't get a chance to answer your questions live during the event. Okay, so Stuart, what are some of the best things about working at the airport?
It's probably easier to answer what's not. Best things. I think for me in my role is that every day is a new day. Every day is like a day at school. You learn something new. I come to work and have a perception plan of this is what I'm going to do today, and it goes totally out the window. Plus the fact is, it still gets me in awe of watching a 747 take off. I just can't believe it. And you can sit at the end of one of the satellites and watch it. So I'm sitting here now looking out across the runway. Brilliant. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean as well, because we've now been open 3 years, and for those of you that haven't been to the college yet and had a chance to look at our fantastic facilities, we're based right at the very end of the runway, and you never get bored of seeing those aircraft take off. So yeah, I completely relate to that. So you did touch on this as well in your presentation at the start, but could you just again, maybe for our current learners and new offer holders, just sort of remind us of the top tips that you would give some of our students for getting into the workplace?
Top tips, right? Here we go. Like I said, you're being given, guys, a prime opportunity here at college, and take these as your first steps into working life. One of the things I find, and this I've learned more having this webinar that we're having here, is that while you're at Stansted Airport College, whenever you're walking around, there's employers always looking. So you've got to be on your top of your game. Also, any advice would be, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's where we learn. You know, we yes, you can get things right and be taught, but sometimes it's nice to go just a bit off the curve. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, but you learn by that mistake, and that's what makes you a better person. With some of the careers that you guys offer as well, I did my apprenticeship. When I did my apprenticeship, we had what was called logbooks. So every single job that you had, you did, you had to write it down with a method statement and what tools you use, what was the outcomes, everything. And as I understand it, for a lot of the apprentices today, that's now changed. And they've got the golden opportunity where they've got a mobile. So when it comes to the end of your apprenticeship or the end of your college term, and you're going out into the big wide world to go and get a job, and you're in that interview, you've got to think about what's going to put you that one step in front of everyone else. And what I would say to you is, where you're working on stuff, take photographs of it, take information, write it down. So when you go to that interview, you can present that, and that gives something for the person who's interviewing you, something to actually engage in. And then if you're passionate about that, that comes across in the interview process. So the guys out there is really, you're being given a golden opportunity. Cheers.
Lovely, thank you, and some really useful tips there. So thank you for that.
No,
I'm now going to hand you over to Victoria, who's got I think a few more questions now she's going to ask from the group.
Yeah, so I've checked into the Q&A box, and one of the first questions, I think I'm gonna pose it to you, David. What makes an ideal airfield operations team member? Hang on, not yet. You need to be unmuted.
There we go. How we go? That's better. Well, I think because we've taken people on board from all over, so I think just as Stuart said, there is a real passion for the place, and when you're out there, you need somebody that doesn't mind being there at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's snowing and icy and on the runway and inspecting, and might be having to remove a dead hair off the runway if it's got hit by an aircraft, but also when it's nice and sunny and you are sat there and you are marshalling a 747 onto a stand. It is quite an amazing environment. We don't actually look for any particular qualifications other than maths and English, a kind of basic understanding of that, but just somebody that's kind of keen to learn. We've taken people from security. I got into airside operations from air traffic control. We've had people from other from airlines, cabin crew. So there's a real mix of people, but normally what they've had is a passion to do the job.
Lovely. Thank you, David. Eddie, I'm coming over to you next because there are a couple of questions that are definitely directed at GT engines. The first one, how do you test the gas turbines?
That's a good question. We don't have our own test cell here at Stansted. So what typically happens with the type of work that we do is the engine may need testing after the job is done, but we would carry forward those items back to the operator, that when they install the engine, they would have to test for leaks, for whether that's air leaks or oil leaks or fuel leaks. And the other portion would be when we change some modules. So actually we're taking the engine and we're splitting it down. We do have some agreements with test cells where we can ship the engine to them to be tested in a test cell environment. So that is the same as it going on wing, but it actually is in a special facility where they actually can operate the engine as if it was on wing to test in case anything goes wrong. So there is two ways. We don't do it ourselves internally, but we have options to do so if needed.
So another question that's come through is how long does it take to fix an engine, and roughly how many engines do you get a month? So that they really want to know your business.
Good question. It varies because we can do a lot of different types of work here. So we can have everything from an engine comes on the back of a lorry today, we unload it, we get it into work, and it's completed within 4 or 5 hours, and it's ready to go back to the operator or the owner. Then we have other engines that could take 15 to 20 days to work and get it through the system. So that mainly is engines that we're actually tearing down a lot more before we put them back together again. As far as how many we do in a month, like I mentioned earlier, we can have up to 25 engines in work at any one time. So it's all about slotting engines in and out. We have got some shorter engines, as in the work scope is very small, to big engine work scope. So probably in a month we would see, I would say, in the region of 20 to 30 engines being worked through the system here.
That's quite amazing, especially when you appreciate the size of some of those engines, because having had a tour myself, they are, and we have a couple in our workshop, but some of the ones that you've got in your workshop, they're massive, absolutely massive.
Absolutely.
So in the question and answer function, we have quite a lot of questions that relate to work placements, to apprenticeships, to guest talks and visits, etc. So I'm just gonna hand over to Mel here to answer this question.
Okay, thank you very much. So I can give you a little bit overview of how we operate the work placements and work experience here at the college. We, as you can see from today's webinar, have lots of connections with employers on the airport, and we work very hard to provide opportunities for our students. So we might be looking for work experience opportunities for you. We might be looking for apprenticeships, for employment. We talk with our employers to see if they might come in and do a guest talk. What we really like is for our students to receive quite a few talks from different employers during their time here, because it can really help people decide what career path they might like to take. Some people come to the college and they're absolutely sure what career path they want to go on. And some people come to the college and they know that they have a real passion for aviation, but they don't quite know which direction that's going to end up going in. And we're here to help with that. So work experience and work placements are really, really important part of college life and preparing students for the workplace. So where possible, we try to get everybody out on some kind of work experience.
Lovely, thank you, Mel. I can see we're really running out of time, but I do want to just pose one last question, and because of the interest on the Q&A, Heidi, this one's coming to you. I think hopefully we can capture some really good info here. What are some of the best things about working for Harrods?
Working for Harrods, my daughter would say the discount card. I think it's a variety of the people that we deal with. As I said, I moved over from commercial aviation where you just don't have time. And I really did have a shock when I came over here. It's just so very different. We do have time, and it's nice to be able to meet the customer's needs and spend time with them and really look after them. And I think the diversity of the people that we deal with, the different cultures, the different people that we deal with. And it's just, as I said, I know that the other guys will think the same, but certainly our industry, no day is different. You know, I think I said to you the other day, I was asked to hide a jumbo jet. You know, we've dealt with Air Force One. You know, I've dealt with Air Force One 6 times. That's a huge thing for us. And as I have said, if we get it wrong, it's in front of the world, and I don't want to be that YouTube moment. We work in a lovely environment. We don't have the pressures that they have in the commercial side. And as I said, I've really met some iconic people, very, very privileged to be in the position I am.
Thank you, Heidi. So now, Wendy, it's over to you to close this down for us.
Yes, thank you, Victoria. And I just want to say sort of thank you to everyone, some of our current learners and some of our new offer holders. Thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. And I think that the biggest thank you goes to our employers for joining this event and continuing to help enrich the experience of our learners, and hopefully give our new recruits a flavour of what you can expect when you join us in September. We hope you've got a lot out of our VIP event and a clearer picture of some of the fantastic opportunities that will be waiting for you when you enter the aviation industry. We will be sending you an email with the session recording, and we will also, along with that, send you a short survey, and we'd really appreciate if you could take just a couple of minutes to fill that in to help us continually improve the service and the activities that we do run. Also, remember to follow us on social media so you can keep up to date with some of the great things happening at the college. Finally, for our offer holders, we have some more exciting events coming up for you. First of all, on the 17th of May, we'll have a virtual open event where we'll be going live to the terminal and to the Ryanair hangar. In June, providing the government's roadmap continues to go to plan, we're hoping to open our doors for some face-to-face events and for some tours, so that if you haven't had a chance yet to come and see our fantastic facilities here at the college, you will have that opportunity in June. And then lastly, we'll be in touch about our new student and parent event that will also be taking place in June. So once again, thank you to everyone that's joined us tonight. A huge thank you to our employers, and we can't wait to see you all in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.